Now with a look at the stories making the headlines this Sunday, here's the latest ITV News.
The heat is on. Manufacturers warn the government that jobs are at risk and production could stop if high energy costs continue. Industry and businesses want their own price cap to insulate them from soaring bills.
I think it's a critical situation. Clearly, I'm speaking to industry, as you've said, all the time. And high gas prices, they've quadrupled this year, are making an impact.
1,000 migrants have made it across the Channel in the last 2 days, but France claims it hasn't received any money promised by the UK to stop the traffickers. A warning of ecological meltdown if we don't do more to protect our native plants and animals. Plus, Tyson Fury fights back after being knocked down twice in one of boxing's best ever contests.
This is ITV News.
Good evening, I'm Lucy Watson. The Energy Secretary has admitted that British industry faces a critical situation because of the energy crisis, with manufacturers warning that jobs will be put at risk if they have to shut down production due to rising costs. UK Steel is among those calling for a package of measures, including their own price cap, to get them through the winter. Corrie says he's discussing a support plan with businesses and the Chancellor. But the Treasury told us no such talks have taken place. Our political reporter Shihab Khan has more.
The price of wholesale gas continues to rise, and the impact on businesses, large and small, is becoming apparent. Industries which rely heavily on energy have told the government that factories could be weeks away from closing. And today the Business Secretary said talks to try and help were ongoing.
I think it's a critical situation. Clearly, I'm speaking to industry, as you've said, all the time. And high gas prices, they've quadrupled this year, are making an impact. And that's why I'm, as you say, speaking to people, listening and trying to work out a way forward.
But so far, since the start of the crisis, there's been no new additional support for industries, and many, including those in the steel sector, say they are running out of time.
If government does nothing, we would start to see job losses in the steel sector. We need action now, not in the next months and few months or up till Christmas, because if we don't see action now, then we will, as a steel sector, not have a Christmas to look forward to.
They say they've submitted a number of proposals, including a price cap for businesses, which is similar to what is in place for consumers. But this is also affecting small and medium-sized businesses as well, such as care homes, where energy usage is high because it's crucial to looking after residents.
Charles, how are you? The radiator is just here.
It is a significant cost, and here at the Arms Care Norfolk Lodge care home, they say it would be difficult to offset any large rise in bills.
Whereas at home, you can turn the thermostat down by 1 degree, you can moderate and control your energy costs to some degree. In a care environment, you can't. The heating is on, the hot water is on, it's on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
For consumers, there is a price cap on bills, which today the government insisted would stay in place. It is, however, expected to rise next spring, but experts say there are government levies, including carbon green taxes, that could be removed.
There are a few things that the government's if that they could look at doing. 25% of electricity bill costs are policy costs. Maybe they could remove those. There's VAT on energy bills, that's the government cost. There are things on bills which government could look at.
The government says protecting consumers is their priority, but as this crisis rumbles on, pressure is now mounting on all sides for extra support.
Now, Shihab, there does seem to be some confusion over whether heavy industries, which of course use a lot more energy, are likely to get any further support.
Absolutely. So representatives from those big industries met with the government on Friday. They were speaking to Kwarteng. A source who was at that meeting was telling me that they felt as though at the time the Business Secretary was pointing them towards the Treasury, saying that that's where the solution was going to come from. The Business Secretary today, in those morning interviews, said that he was engaging with the Treasury. Now, a Treasury source told me that they weren't involved in any discussions whatsoever. So when I asked them, where's this come from then? Is the Business Secretary making this up? The source responded, yes. So there's a bit of confusion about what's going on. It seems as though these two big government departments are almost at war with each other over who's responsible. It's come at a time when the Prime Minister is reportedly on holiday. It's his job to sort of sort this out. What we know is this is a big crisis. We know that the government wants to find a solution and the work is ongoing. Who's responsible for it? We don't know as of yet.
Thank you. The Home Office has confirmed that in the last 2 days, more than 1,000 people got into small boats and made the dangerous trip across the English Channel to the UK. The French government has admitted it could do more, but says it's still waiting on €63 million promised by Britain in July to invest in patrolling the waters. Rebecca Barry has the story.
This afternoon in Dover, another Border Force boat brings its desperate passengers to safety. The flimsy dinghy that carried them over from France towed behind. We watched as dozens of men, women and children were brought ashore. These people among more than 1,000 who've made the treacherous crossing in recent days, as the political row over how to end this crisis escalates. France has accused the UK of failing to send tens of millions of pounds promised to help stop migrants crossing the Channel, the money meant to help pay for police patrols on French beaches. There is not €1 that has been paid by the British government, the Interior Minister claims. Britons are people of honour, and I'm certain this is a slight accounting delay, and they will keep their promise. The response from the UK government today? Both sides are working well together, but no mention of that money.
All I can say is that we've worked very effectively with the French government so far. We've had 300 arrests. We've worked with them to do that. There have been 65 convictions. And we both accept that there are something like 13,500 crossings that have been prevented through our working together. So it is a good collaborative relationship, and we obviously want to improve that.
And it clearly needs improving. In the last 2 days alone, more than 1,100 people have climbed into these small boats and made the deadly journey. After 10 days of bad weather, at least 40 boats managed to reach Britain on Friday and Saturday. It takes the total so far this year to a record 18,000 people. While politicians launch rhetoric back and forth over the Channel, every day, people are making the real journey across this perilous stretch of water, putting their lives at risk and money in the hands of criminal gangs. The Home Office says new immigration laws will provide a long-term solution. With record numbers still willing to go through this, a solution can't come soon enough. Rebecca Barry, ITV News, Dover.
Police in Guatemala have freed 126 people trapped inside a locked shipping container abandoned at the side of a road. It's thought they were migrants who had paid smugglers to take them to the United States. Officers said people living nearby raised the alarm after hearing knocks and cries for help. The UK has ranked among the worst countries in the world for protecting its native animals and plants, and scientists are warning that leaves us dangerously exposed. Britain has lost nearly half of its natural species. Researchers say that means new diseases or pests are more likely to cause shortages in food, energy and materials, as James Webster explains.
The UK's varied landscapes are home to many different birds and animals, but experts say that variety of creatures is not what it once was. Scientists warn that when biodiversity drops below 90% of its original level, crops can fail. Globally, the average is around 75%. Here, it's even lower, 53%, putting the UK in the bottom 10% of countries.
We have remained relatively stable in recent years, but I think we have to be cautious about celebrating too soon, because while we've made some progress, so for instance, we've seen some increase in the amount of natural and semi-natural vegetation and decreases in pasture, any benefits to biodiversity that those changes might have had have probably been offset by increases in the amount of cropland and urban areas.
We've got 2 marsh harriers flying, look James, going right, birds of prey.
Now it's at nature reserves like this one you'll see the sort of wildlife that would have been common all over the country.
There's been a grey heron feeding, a little egret feeding.
Staff here say replacing lost habitats needs to happen on a much larger scale than what they can do.
We can manage these nature reserves, we've seen nature recover here, but we need to do it across bigger landscapes. It can't just be on nature reserves. We need the whole countryside to be fit for nature to recover.
This week, world leaders will meet to discuss how to reduce the rate that nature is being lost. Today's report is timed to focus their minds on setting new targets, even though none of those agreed at a previous summit a decade ago were achieved. And its authors say it is as important as tackling climate change. Without action, they warn, we could be heading for an ecological meltdown. James Webster, ITV News.
Tyson Fury says he should now be considered one of the greats in boxing after successfully defending his world heavyweight title against Deontay Wilder. He got back up twice, battling to win in an 11th round knockout in front of a Las Vegas crowd. Chris Scudder was watching the match that is being hailed as one of the most exciting fights of all time.
It's all over. He staked his claim to be the greatest heavyweight of his generation after a blockbuster fight that could have come straight out of the Hollywood Rocky movies. The script had everything. 5 knockdowns in a brutal struggle that swayed back and forth. But just like the first meeting in the classic trilogy of these two warriors, it looked as though Fury was about to lose. In the 4th round, he was floored twice by hammer blows from the big punching American. But once again, his Lazarus-like powers of recovery saved the day.
He caught me twice in the 4th round, but I was never like thinking, oh, this is over. I was thinking, OK, good shot, but I will get you back in a minute, and I did.
With devastating effect. In the 10th round, Wilder was also down for a 2nd time. Then, in the 11th, the knockout punch. And this time, the man they call the Bronze Bomber would not be getting it.
I hit him solid with a crunching right hook right in the side of the temple. And shots like that, they end careers.
Fury will defend against fellow Brit Dillian White next. Then the prospect of chasing the belts held by Alexander Usyk after his shock win over Anthony Joshua.
AJ gonna fight Usyk again, and the winner of that will fight between Dylan and Tyson Fury. The winner will fight to make one champion.
I'm the generation fighter. I actually feel sorry for all these guys who's had to fight me.
Tyson! We await the final chapter and the Gypsy King's bid to become undisputed world champion. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
In the Women's Super League, Arsenal stayed top after beating Everton. This goal from Frida Marnham secured this 3-0 win. It means they're still 3 points clear of Chelsea and Tottenham. Spurs' unbeaten start to the season ended with a 2-1 defeat at Brighton. Finally, Lewis Hamilton has lost the top spot in the F1 Championship after coming a disappointing 5th in the Turkish Grand Prix. The British driver did qualify fastest, but started from 11th on the grid after being given a penalty for changing his engine. Mark McQuillan reports.
The focus was once again on Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, as one of the closest battles for the world title in years took another twist in Turkey.
It's lights out, away we go.
As one former champion, Fernando Alonso, spun and lost ground at the start, the man defending his crown, Hamilton, was looking to make it up from 11th on the grid. And things looked to be going the British driver's way, overtaking Pierre Gasly as he moved through the field. But then conditions and strategy became key. Mercedes wanted Hamilton to change tyres. He was keen to stay out.
New inset is the way to go. I don't think it is, man.
Ultimately, he did pit.
Hamilton's coming in.
Debate will continue as to whether he should have done so earlier or not at all. It resulted in him dropping from 3rd to 5th.
Man, why'd you give up that space?
His teammate Valtteri Bottas secured victory from pole position. But the big winner was Verstappen. his second place turned a 2-point deficit into a 6-point lead over Hamilton in the driver's standings. The title race still very much in the balance, with 6 races to go. Mark McQuillan, ITV News.
That's all from the weekend team for now. I'm back with the late news at 10:05 tonight. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.